Hey everybody. I don't know what that is. I guess it's okay. Um, this is a first and probably a couple videos that are dealing with abnormal psychology for you all. Um, I'll probably be in class on a Monday, um, which I guess you'll watch this Monday night. But as y'all know, I'm going on senior trip, so I'll be gone for the next 4 days. In order to keep us from getting behind, we'll go ahead and make sure we've got a couple of these, 3 or 4 of these videos to keep us caught up. So the first thing we're going to get into today is abnormal psych, and I'm sure we will have gone over some of this earlier in the day. Excuse me, I'm actually making this video while I'm in Jamaica over spring break. You can see the ocean there behind me. We're kind of way up on the hill here in Montego Bay, so you'll get to listen to the traffic go by and look at the ocean and maybe watch a plane or two go by. I think the airport's over there, so you'll see them kind of coming in low. But anyways, abnormal psych, and it's important for us to know what we mean by abnormal psychology, what makes it abnormal. And the best definition would be this one right here, and pay careful attention to what is in quotations: a harmful dysfunction in which behavior is judged to be atypical, disturbing, maladaptive, or unjustifiable. There's a lot of behaviors that people exhibit that may be odd or strange, but don't necessarily fall into the harmful dysfunction part. So that's just something to keep in mind. There's got to be harmful dysfunction along with these other things. Early theories, as you can imagine, dealt with things like evil spirits. There's evil spirits in your body trying to get out. Trephining was often used, basically cutting open the head to let the evil spirit out, or using contraptions to kind of suck it out of the brain. Kind of disturbing, but it was used. Each perspective has their own cause of whatever disorder that they're referring to, and that's one of the reasons why we go over it so early on in the class, because each one of these has an explanation for really everything that we've talked about up through now. We've only got basically 2 units left, and they're going to it is what it is. So the psychoanalytic, they're looking at internal unconscious drives, kind of the Freudianism stuff. Humanistic will say that people who have disorders are not reaching their own potential and are out of touch with their feelings. The behaviorist will say that this behavior has just been reinforced, and there's not necessarily anything wrong. It's just the behavior that's been reinforced. Cognitive, they're looking at irrational or dysfunctional thoughts. Sociocultural places the blame on society. And the biomedical neuroscience, they look at biochemical imbalance, genetic predispositions, things like that. And I would probably argue that the majority of psychologists, at least when it comes to certain disorders, probably fall into this right here, just judging by all of the medicines out there. And the medicines do help in a lot of ways, so there's definitely a lot of credence to the biomedical neuroscience perspective as it pertains to this. So this says DSM-4. You may hear me refer to that, or the DSM-5. I think we're in 5. Basically, DSM stands for the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. This is basically the book that psychologists look at when diagnosing mental disorders. I believe we're on version 5 now, and you can see kind of how thick it's gotten over the years. Here's the DSM-1 or 2, DSM-3. kind of is almost probably 2 to 3 times bigger. I'm not sure what DSM-3R stands for. I'm sure somebody out there does. And then here's 4. TR stands for text revision. So maybe made a few changes, but it's a pretty big book, and a lot of what truck using his Jake brake. A lot of what we hear and talk about when it comes to psychology or psychological disorders, generally it'll come through the latest version, so it'd be DSM-4, but I believe we're on DSM-5 now. The DSM classifies and describes the symptoms. These trucks down here don't have anything. Anyways, hopefully it's not too distracting. One thing to note, that the DSM does not explain causes or give you possible cures. It just classifies the disorders. And we're going to talk about 2 of the major classifications today, and we'll get a little deeper probably a little later. But 2 major classifications in the DSM are the neurotic disorders, and these disorders are distressing, but you can still function in society and actually act rationally or act somewhat normal. You can get by. People can live, people can excel, people can do well with neurotic disorders. But the other type is the psychotic disorders, and these are the disorders where people lose contact with reality. Their perceptions are severely distorted, and these people generally need lots and lots of help to function. That is a picture of John Wayne Gacy, and if you don't know who that is, look him up. He's a scary dude. Everybody honks their horns then. Another type we're going to talk about are anxiety disorders, and these are, I believe, these are a group of conditions where the primary symptoms are anxiety or defenses against anxiety or defenses from getting anxiety. A lot of you or a lot of people, that seems to be one of the bigger one of the bigger disorders is anxiety. You hear a lot of even high school students now are being diagnosed with anxiety disorders. And this is just a general feeling of dread where something awful is going to happen to them in some way, some form. They're almost always in a state of intense They're almost always in a state of intense apprehension, uneasiness, uncertainty, fear, and I believe this is it carries on for a while. It's not something you are worried about for a day and then you're over it. These are feelings that persist over long periods of time. We're going to talk about phobias. This is where people will experience sudden episodes of intense dread. But the thing with a phobia is that it has to be an irrational fear. I'm afraid to walk outside because I'm afraid of a tree falling on me. Well, but you live in the middle of a field. I don't care if a tree's going to fall on me. All right, those are types of phobias. They're irrational. Excuse me. Snakes, spiders are 2 pretty big ones. There are phobias of parties. I'm not going to click this phobia list because I don't believe I'm connected to the internet right now. So I'll post this PowerPoint and you can look at it a little later. Then you have the generalized anxiety disorder, the GAD. This is an anxiety disorder which a person is continuously tense and apprehensive in a state of autonomic nervous system arousal. These people hearts are always pounding. They're always in this fight or flight scenario. And it's very ironic that picture came up because somebody around me smoking weed. Welcome to Jamaica. Come on. Anyways, moving on. The patient is constantly tense, worried, feels inadequate, is oversensitive, can't concentrate, suffers from anxiety, insomnia. You know, and again, this is probably what, if it's an anxiety disorder, this is probably the one that most people are diagnosed with. Panic disorders is an anxiety disorder marked by minutes-long episodes of intense dread in which a person experiences terror and accompanying chest pain, choking, other frightening sensations. They basically think they're going to die. It's longer than a short period of time. I mean, you're talking 5, 10, 15 minutes. Sorry. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. There's a couple things that are. There's a plane taking off. There's a couple things with this that are we need to be aware of as we're, you know, when people always say, well, I'm OCD. Not necessarily, especially if we're going by what the definition is. First off, obsessive compulsive disorder, these are persistent unwanted thoughts. The thoughts are the obsessions, which cause someone to feel the need or the compulsion to do something. Just because you do something over and over and over without thinking about it does not necessarily mean it's obsessive compulsive disorder. The thing with this is that there's a couple key words here I want us to make sure we're aware of. Persistent unwanted thoughts. Now those connect to the obsessions, which cause the compulsion, cause the need to engage in a particular action. I've met people with actual OCD. It's diagnosed, and it can be a lot of different thoughts which make them compulsed to do things. The friend of mine, it was hand washing. The persistent thought was the fear of getting sick, and unwanted persistent fear of getting sick. So he was washing his hands 10, 12, 15 times a day. Every chance he walked past a sink, or, you know, he would wash his hands. Not to be confused with those of us who just have a habit of, whenever we walk by the Germ-X dispenser, getting a little bit. At least I do that just without thinking about it. It's a habit. That is not obsessive compulsive disorder. And, you know, here's another, an obsession about dirt and germs may lead to compulsive hand washing. So, and that was the case with one of my friends in college. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. These are a lot of times, and this isn't all the time, because PTSD, I think that people are still learning on how it can manifest itself, but usually it begins, or at least some of the more severe ones are manifest in flashbacks or nightmares after somebody's involvement or observation. Here comes a plane. Or an observation of an extremely stressful event. War is one, but it's not the only one. You know, people who suffer from abuse, people who are in car wrecks, any type of traumatic event can cause PTSD if the atmosphere or if the conditions are right. And many times memories can cause anxiety. You know, just the memory of something can happen will cause that anxiety to occur. You get those anxiety feelings. Let me see where we're at. I'm going to go ahead and stop there for this video. It's probably short. I did not write down or do anything about where I started, or at least what time, but This may be short, it may be a little longer, but tomorrow or the next video we will continue, and we're going to hit somatoform disorders and hypochondriasis and things like that. So anyways, hope you all are having a good day, and I'll see you next time around. Peace.